how do we bewitch people with our brand?
No. How do we bewitch people with our brands? Well, think about it this way. Most executives communicate and care, but they bore because they lead with logic when our brains want emotional connection. Therefore, tell a story. And what I do at the Business of Story and in my new book, Brand Bewitchery, is teach you the applied science and bewitchery of storytelling. And what I mean by that is that in it are fundamental frameworks that you can use to help develop your overall brand story and smaller frameworks that you can use to tell stories to support that overall brand narrative. But what it ultimately comes down to is using that applied science of those frameworks to bewitch your audiences. And what that means is to hack through the unbelievable noise that we all compete in out there and literally hook the hearts of your customers.
Which is not something new, because I think movies and all have been doing it for generations, and all famous, a lot of successful movies have used the formula, the hero's formula.
Absolutely, but it is not used in business. It is new to business. And once I can get a business out of its logical brain, because actually ask yourself, when were the last time you were ever bored into buying anything? Or when did you ever buy anything because of the data? You simply don't. You have to put that data into context. So turn your data into drama and tell true stories about the real world impact you make on people's lives. And that's how you bewitch them. Now, the interesting thing in all of this, to me anyways, is this frontal cortex we have, this brilliance of us being able to create technology that lands rovers on Mars and soon be people. It's the same brain that has created technology of the internet. It compounds in its ability to communicate information at the power of Moore's rate, this exponential growth. But you and I and all of your viewers out there are still walking around with our monkey brain. The limbic system that our ancestors used 30, 40, 50,000 years ago to navigate and survive the savannah is the exact same system we use today to navigate and survive the internet and this barrage of information coming out of us. But the hack is what we have known since the very beginning of recorded history, and that is story. We storytelling monkeys make meaning out of the madness of being human beings through the stories we tell. Therefore, bring a story structure to creating your brand narrative so that you can connect with people on a very human level. And that's what I do in the story cycle system. That's
so tell us step by step about how do we do this? How do we create these stories?
Well, the story cycle system, 10 steps, is mapped from the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, but it's mapped to business. Step one is your backstory. Just like any story, you have to set the stage for your brand so that it has meaning in the world. And with step one, it's finding out what is your unique position in the marketplace. Just think of your marketplace as the theater in which you are going to tell your story. But in order to stand out, you have to figure out, how are you different? And how are you more distinctive than your competition? And what do you ultimately stand for to stand out so that your character takes front stage? So that's the very first step. Chapter 2, step 2 in the story cycle system is heroes. Who is the center of your story? And here's the spoiler alert for everyone. All brands think they are the center of the story, and that their product service offering is the story. It's what the hero is. Here it is. It's not you. It's not about you. It's about your audience, those people sitting out there in the seats that you are trying to bewitch, to bring them into your world, to buy from you not once, but to become repeat customers and to share your story with the world through free word of mouth marketing. So step 2 is always placing your audience at the center of your story and understanding who your ideal customer persona is and what they care about in the world, which takes us to step 3, stakes. No story is good without compelling stakes. So you can apply this to business and ask yourself, what do your customers want? What do they want, wish for in their life emotionally, and what do they want to purchase to fulfill that wish? Then you ask the next question in stakes. What do they stand to gain by buying into what you have to offer? And maybe even more importantly, What do they stand to lose by remaining in status quo and doing absolutely nothing? So you have to first understand who your audiences are, who the heroes of your story are in step 2. And then step 3 is to make you walk a mile in their shoes. Understand and empathize what they want out of life and how you can be there to get it. But that's not enough. That is not enough to bewitch your audience. You are just now getting familiar with them. Step number 4 takes you to disruption. What has changed in the marketplace, in their world, that is requiring them to shake out of status quo? It could be something that you were doing as a brand to disrupt the world, or maybe like COVID, that we've all experienced this enormous global disruption. How are you there to help them overcome how it has disrupted their life and your product or service, and help them get what they want moving on into 2021 and beyond? So what is happening in the world? You have to have this disruption. Otherwise, you end up selling into status quo, and only low price leaders win in that. And there's no margin in that battle. So what's the disruption going on? Moves into chapter 5. And now you can see how story is playing out in this. We set the stage in act 1 of the first steps of your backstory, who's at the center of your story, and what's at stake for them. We are now moving into the action stage, act 2, with disruption. The world has been changed. What's going to happen now? Well, let's amplify that pain. In 5, we look at identifying your villains, fog, and crevasses in your customer's life. Think about villains, the competitive forces. It could be their choices, your own competition that's trying to get in there. It could be competitive forces that they don't have enough time, they don't have enough money to be able to take over, to come in and buy into your product or service. Or it could be going on between their ears. It could be that voice of fear that says, no, don't do this, it'll never work. So you have to understand what is pushing back on them to keep them from buying you, and then use that knowledge like a jujitsu move in storytelling to your advantage. We call it story tension. Don't ignore it, but use it, because if it's hurting them, you can show them how you can solve that problem for them.
Tell us more about story tension.
Story tension is, well, so often in business, we like to have a beginning and go right to the end. Hi, I'm Park Howell, and I do the business of story, and I help leaders excel through the stories they tell. You want to buy some? Never take the time to really explore what is happening in their world and digging up that tension. So I had a client of mine once say, Park, story or sales is nothing but other than find the hurt, amplify the pain, heal the wound. Find the hurt is act 1. Amplify the pain where the story tension is. What's happening in your life that I can understand, appreciate, and empathize with, let you know that I understand what you're going through, and build more on that tension, so that when I have a release, when I can show you how I can help you overcome it, there's much greater impact. That's where the bewitchery starts happening. So it's your villains. It's also the fog, your blind spots. What don't you know that I'm going to help you clear the air with and give you an aha moment. And then crevasses. What are your performance gaps? You say this, but you're doing that because there's this huge gap in here. How can I bridge that gap through my product or service with you? Then we jump into chapter 6. And this is where you get to talk about you. You are not the hero of the story, but you actually play a more important role of mentor or guide, like Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker, or Glenda, Good Witch of the North, to Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. In chapter 6,
what did Star Wars do so right?
2 things, I think. Number 1, it followed the hero's journey precisely because George Lucas was a disciple of Joseph Campbell. And so in his senior thesis at USC, he wrote Star Wars and wanted to follow the hero's journey to see if it actually worked. The rest of pretty much history there. So we know that template works, but it's also just one big American Western in the universe. So it's playing off of these just fabulous, iconic metaphors that the world knows, and it had really fascinating, interesting characters. But what's more interesting to me is that, so there's Star Wars written based on the hero's journey. Well, if you jump back a few decades and look at the Wizard of Oz, when they didn't really know about the hero's journey then, you look at the Wizard of Oz and it follows the hero's journey exactly as well. So it is this primordial story framework that works in our lives as human beings because it mirrors the way we experience life. We are all on our own hero's journeys at different sizes. It could happen in a day, it could happen in a week, it could happen in a lifetime. It's very meta in that respect, but it's a path to live a journey, and every person in that business leading it is on a hero's journey. That's where I found the power in it. So chapter 6 is you get introduced now into your customer's life as a mentor or guide. You know, what you emotionally promise to do for them and what is an intrinsic gift that they get by buying in your product service. And this is where I really like to underscore that your story is not about what you make, but what you make happen in people's lives.
Yes.
Chapter 7, I'll go very quickly through. This is the journey. This is understanding where your audience is in relation to your brand. In brand awareness, are they just learning about you? And if so, what stories do you tell to beckon them in? Brand adoption, have they now bought something from you? So they've adopted you to your life and you're hoping they're going to keep you. So what stories do you tell and how do you get them interacting with your brand story so that it starts bonding with them to lead to brand appreciation, meaning they're coming back time and time again and they're sharing your story with the world. So take you through your stories really coming together. It's now, what are these stories that you are going to tell them and live with them to deliver on the promises that you make in all your storytelling? We move into chapter 8, and that is victory. Don't wait for some big, grand, victorious time to celebrate with your customers. Celebrate at every small little victory milestone along the way so that you can show that they are progressing with you. You are leveling them up. And just think about the stories you'll tell and how you'll have little celebrations with them. It may be added value you're giving them. It could be bonuses you're getting them. It could be just a thank you note. But think about these victory stages along their journey with you. Leads to chapter 9, the moral of your story. This is where, when you look back on this whole brand narrative you've created, how does it express your shared beliefs and values with your customers' beliefs and values? It's all about what you stand for. If you don't stand for something, you will not stand out in this world. And you want to look at that and say, is everything I've created here in my brand narrative, does it reflect my beliefs and values that I share with my customers? And so it leads to the purpose statement. I exist to help people do what? It's not about I exist to make a ton of money. It's about I exist to help people do what? And then finally, we end up on chapter 10, and I call that the ritual. And this is where you are steadfast in designing how you are going to build the ritualistic use of your product or service in your customer's life. Again, to build on that repeat business, to have them keep coming back for more, and then to hand your story off to them so they are happily evangelizing you and sharing your story with the world through, like I said, that free word of mouth marketing. And that's what the 10 steps of the story cycle system does for you, and how I've captured that in Brand Bewitchery. If those that are so self-centered and they just want to talk about themselves will never get it, they'll never understand how story will work with them. I'm looking for the wise, the people that really get it at a much deeper level, the people that I've helped grow by as much as 600% using this system because they were wide open to the vulnerability they need to bring to it, the honesty that they need to bring to it. And then they realize and see the power of connecting with people on a whole new primal level that blows their mind.
So thank you, Mr. Howell, for taking the time to talk to us, and love your book.
Thank you so much. So appreciate being here.